The photograph sat forgotten in a Boston Historical Society archive for many decades. Dated June 15, 1910, the sepia image showed the well-known Matthews family posing formally in their Victorian parlor. Richard Matthews, a successful textile merchant, stood beside his wife Elizabeth, with their 3 children sitting properly in front of them. The family's wealth was clear from their expensive clothing and the fancy furniture around them. Persian rugs, mahogany tables, and oil paintings in gold frames showed their high social status in Boston's elite circles. In 2023, a historical researcher named Dr. Elena Wells found the photograph while organizing items for an exhibit on Boston's industrial families. With a doctorate in American social history, Dr. Wells had earned a reputation for finding hidden stories within standard historical records. At first look, the Matthews photograph seemed like a normal formal portrait of that time. The stiff poses, serious faces, and careful layout followed the photographic trends of the early 20th century. However, as Dr. Wells looked at the photograph under bright archival lights and a magnifying glass, something surprising caught her attention. Partially visible near the window in the background was another child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, looking straight at the camera. The figure was a bit blurry, but definitely there, watching the family scene with an expression that was hard to read. The child's clothes were much simpler than those of the Matthews children, and their distance from the main family group suggested the photographer made a specific choice to keep them separate. According to all Matthews family records, there were only 3 children in the home at this time. Dr. Wells wrote in her research journal that the identity of this 4th child was completely missing from any family trees or social records she had checked. Experts confirmed the photograph was a real 1910 print and had not been changed. The mysterious figure was actually there when the photo was taken, which raised questions about a hidden member of the household. Dr. Wells began her investigation by looking at official records from early 20th century Boston. The city's detailed records helped her understand the family's public life. Census documents from 1910 listed only 5 people in the house: Richard, Elizabeth, and their 3 children, William, Margaret, and James. No 4th child was officially listed as living at their address. Records at the state archives confirmed that Elizabeth Matthews had only 3 children. Church records also showed only 3 children attending Sunday school or being baptized. Dr. Wells then checked school records and neighborhood maps. She found that the family had 2 live-in servants, an Irish cook and a Swedish housekeeper, and sometimes hosted relatives, but none matched the age of the child in the window. The evidence clearly went against what was visible in the picture. Dr. Wells told her colleagues that this child was either left out of official records on purpose or had a connection to the family that didn't require paperwork. A clue appeared in Elizabeth Matthews's personal letters. A note from March 1910 mentioned plans for C being finished, but gave no other details. The letter C appeared more times in Elizabeth's calendars, often linked to her charity work. The child's position at the edge of the photo suggested a strange status in the house, present but not shown as a family member. To understand more, the photo was sent to Dr. Thomas Anderson at the Smithsonian. He was an expert in old photography with 30 years of experience. Dr. Anderson studied the portrait with scientific tools. He confirmed the figure was not a mistake or a trick of light. The child was physically standing about 6 feet behind the family. Digital tools showed the child had dark hair and wore simple clothes, not the fancy outfits of the Matthews children or the uniforms of the staff. The child's posture showed they were posing on purpose. Dr. Anderson noted that the child was looking right at the camera, which required staying very still for several seconds. This meant the photographer and the family likely knew the child was there. Shadows and reflections in a mirror proved the image was authentic. Dr. Anderson also found a small detail on the windowsill, a handwritten note that was too small to read but clearly placed there for a reason. This suggested the child's presence had a special meaning. Dr. Wells's research took a turn when she found news articles about Richard Matthews from 1909. While he was a successful businessman, he was seen as a complex figure. In 1908, a tragic accident at his mill killed 3 workers. One of the dead was a widow named Mary Foley, who left behind an 8-year-old daughter. Articles mentioned that Matthews had made private arrangements to help the affected families. Later, Dr. Wells found that Elizabeth Matthews became very active in a society that helped orphans. The timing matched perfectly: the accident in 1908, the charity work in 1909, and the mystery child in the 1910 photograph. A big breakthrough came from the family's expense books. Starting in November 1909, a regular monthly payment appeared for CF. These payments continued for years and covered clothes and doctors. In February 1910, the books showed a large cost for room arrangements for C, suggesting she moved into the house. While the family spent money on her, it was much less than they spent on their own children. By late 1910, the records showed the name Catherine for the first time in a Christmas gift entry. Dr. Wells concluded that the family was supporting this child, but she held a middle position, neither a servant nor a full family member. Elizabeth's letters to her sister finally revealed the truth. She wrote that Catherine was settling in but remained quiet and solemn. Richard wanted to keep his distance, but Elizabeth felt a duty to the girl because of the accident at the mill. Elizabeth had set up a room for Catherine near the servants' area, but nicer. While the family kept this a secret in public, the children began to bond with her. By 1912, Richard finally allowed Catherine to attend a good academy with his daughter Margaret. It wasn't an official adoption, but it was a way to give her a future. Elizabeth saw this as a private act of justice for the debt they owed the girl's mother. To find the final pieces of the story, Dr. Wells turned her attention to the old manufacturing company records. The archives recently given to the Boston Industrial History Museum contained employment records, accident reports, and letters from 1900 to 1920. These papers offered a rare look into business habits of that time. Catherine O'Malley's mother, Mary O'Malley, appeared in the records as a spinner hired in 1905. She was a widowed Irish immigrant who had lost her husband to illness in 1903. She worked at the factory for 3 years before the tragedy. Her file described her as reliable, on time, and skilled, with no history of trouble. The accident report from October 14, 1908, detailed a machine failure that killed 3 workers, including Mary. Investigations showed that a broken safety part had been reported many times but was never fixed to avoid slowing down production, a common but controversial habit back then. Internal notes between Richard Matthews and his manager discussed Catherine's care. One note said the situation with the O'Malley child needed quick attention. There were no relatives in Boston to take her, and family in Ireland could not be reached. An orphanage seemed likely, but Mrs. Matthews had doubts because of how the mother died. A later memo from Richard on October 30, 1908, suggested a temporary stay at their home while T.A. found a permanent place. He told his staff to be quiet about it. The matter was kept private to avoid other families asking for the same help. 6 months later, a manager warned that workers were gossiping. While the family's kindness was good, the idea of treating one victim's family differently needed careful handling. Richard wrote in the margin that the arrangement would continue because his wife insisted they would handle any trouble. Dr. Wells then looked at school records. At first, she found no record of Catherine in public schools from 1909 to 1911. This suggested she had a private tutor at the Matthews house. Records show Elizabeth Matthews hired a housekeeper's niece, a trained teacher, to give Catherine lessons in reading, writing, and math. This schooling happened inside the home rather than at a school. However, records from the prestigious Brooklyn Ladies Academy showed that in September 1912, a Catherine Matthews enrolled in the preparatory level. Her application was signed by Richard Matthews, who listed her as a ward of the family instead of a daughter. A history expert, Dr. Sarah Peterson, noted that this label showed the family was paying for her, but avoided the legal step of adoption. It was a careful balance, keeping boundaries while giving Catherine a great education. Catherine's school records showed she was a fantastic student, especially in math and literature. Teachers called her quiet but very smart and determined. One teacher wrote that she had a great ability to focus despite her past. The 1918 school yearbook included a graduation photo of a young woman named Catherine Matthews. Her face clearly matched the child in the 1910 family photo. She looked calm and serious. The yearbook noted her plan to study math at Radcliffe College, which was an amazing goal for a woman of her background. A handwritten note in the school's copy mentioned her scholarship was an exceptional case arranged by a Matthews. To understand the full context, Dr. Wells spoke with Dr. Martin Cohen, an expert on social classes. He explained that the Matthews family took a middle ground between charity and duty. In the early 1900s, Most people saw factory accidents as sad but unavoidable costs of business. Owners rarely took personal responsibility for the families left behind. The Matthews decision to support Catherine showed they felt a moral duty. Their approach, keeping Catherine in their house but at a different social level, showed both a kind heart and the strict social rules of the time. Her spot in the family photo, visible but separate, symbolized her status. Including her at all was rare, but placing her by the window instead of with the main group kept the social ranks clear. The final chapter of Catherine's story came from many records. Dr. Wells followed Catherine's path from that window to a life that went beyond her humble beginnings. After graduating from Radcliffe in 1922 with a math degree, Catherine moved to New York to teach at a women's college. She still used the Matthews name, even though she was never legally adopted. Her hiring letters praised her sharp mind and hard work. Census records from 1930 listed her as a math professor, a job she kept until she retired in 1960. She published research papers and helped write a math textbook used in many colleges. Catherine never married, but lived for a long time. With another female professor, she stayed in touch with Margaret Matthews throughout her life. Their letters showed a complex bond that turned into a friendship between two educated women. In a 1945 letter, Catherine wrote that while her life started with tragedy, the chance the family gave her changed everything. She was grateful for Elizabeth's kindness, and Richard's eventually recognizing her skills. She noted that the old photo in Richard's study told only part of the story. The child by the window finally found her place in the world, even if she wasn't at the center of the picture. In 1965, Catherine started a scholarship fund for young women from factory backgrounds to study math or science. In her final papers, she wrote that education changed her life when she had no other hope, and she wanted to give that same chance to others whose parents sacrificed in America's factories.